Namaskar friends, Jai Kali, Jai Mahadev, Jai Bharat. I hope everyone is doing good and thanks for tuning in today. You all must be aware who our guest is tonight. Our guest is again two of the profound scholars, Bill and Robert, and they have written endless books that you all can go and read and understand what Islam is all about. And apart from that, we have got one more guest in our panel, and that is none other than Fawzia Rauf ji. And Fawzia Rauf is also an apostate, and she's in America, and she's somehow trying to cope up with the entire apostate thing. And yes, so without any delay, let me welcome all our guests on the screen. Robert, thank you so much.
Always good to see you. Thank you.
Yes. Bill, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your courage and work.
Fawzia, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Jen, namaste.
Namaste. And yes, and now let me start the topic for today's discussion, because I just want to tell my audience that there would be one more guest coming in some time, and we would be jointly trying to understand what Islam is, or are we still scared of the 1400-year-old ideology? And I would request Robert G to start the discussion first. Robert G, could you please tell us, are we still scared even after 1400 years?
I think fear is one of the primary motivating forces behind the non-Muslim world's response to Islam. In the West, we hear about respect. When the Muhammad cartoons were published first in a Danish newspaper back in 2005, and then they became a flashpoint, and there were protests all over the world with Muslims saying that this was blasphemy and that the cartoonists should be killed and so on. The newspapers in the West, instead of standing up for the freedom of speech, they started to speak about respect for Islam and Muslims, and accordingly declined to republish any of the cartoons. This went to a ludicrous extent. For example, Yale University Press published a book about the cartoon riots and controversy, but did not republish the cartoons in the book. And so fear was all about that. It wasn't really respect at all. The secular people in the West, they don't have any respect for any religion, particularly the Christian religion that has been the history, that has characterized and formed the history and culture of the West. And they don't have any trouble insulting Christianity, mocking it, making fun, because they know Christians won't kill them. But the Muslims will, and so suddenly they speak about respect when really it's all about fear.
Yes. Now I would request Bill G. Bill, could you please tell us, could you please enlighten us, do you think that we are still scared after 1400 years?
Absolutely and totally. And one of the reasons we're frightened is that we don't organize to stand against Islam. And we also don't really know Islam. Islam is like the boogeyman. More imagined is fearful than is actually feared. And we have a problem, which I dwelt the last time I was on this show about. I was talking last night actually, at a birthday party with a woman who's part of the Republican Party of the United States, who are supposed to be brave conservatives. And I said, it's my observation that most Republicans are just gutless, spineless. She says, well, now that I work within the Republican Party, I can tell you this, we are spineless. She says, it's not my position, but it's the position of the party. And so this fear is based on ignorance, because we would see that there are many things that if we simply work together, so that we didn't stand alone. And that's another reason we're afraid, is we've never organized to stand against. So if we could only get together and do like mass civil disobedience in the terms of like mass blasphemy, then we could stand together and be courageous. But we don't want to unite. We don't want to recognize there's a problem. As a matter of fact, we don't even want to talk about Islam at all. Let me give you an example. There was a shooting in Colorado a couple of weeks ago. And at first the news all said, well, that's another crazy white guy, white supremacist. As soon as it became known that he was a Muslim, the news absolutely shut down. There was no more news. There was no more shooting. There was no problem at all. So this is nothing but a mark of fear because we don't want to discuss the truth. We will discuss any pleasant lie. We'll become we may be cowards, but we're the most pleasant, compassionate, loving, kind people you'll ever meet. Of course, we won't do anything if you don't accept it. So I absolutely agree that fear is the driver. Robert, I think I mentioned this to you one time before. When I first started doing this business, people would write me emails and said, "Oh, you're so smart." Well, I still occasionally get those, but more of what I get now is they mention I'm courageous. I'm not
Yes.
bragging on myself, but I'm just saying that the reason they see me as courageous is I'm doing what they would like to do. Right, Robert?
Yes, I get the same thing, Bill. And so many people also write and say, here is a story that you should cover, and don't mention my name above all.
Right.
Okay, but that's not the kind of courage that's going to see us through this.
Exactly.
Yes, very true. Now I want to move on to Fawzia. Fawzia, you have moved, from Kabul to USA in order to save your life, and you had been having a lot of death sanctions and all these threats of beheading and all that crap. So how did you manage? And do you also think that even after 1400 years, we are still scared? Are you still scared?
Well, absolutely, because you know what? I was born in Afghanistan. I was just 20 days old when we migrated to Pakistan because of the communists. We left our country, but then thanks to the American taxpayers who really helped support the rebels against that communist. But unfortunately, it didn't well good for Afghanistan because what Pakistan did, they were taking money from USA, which they're still taking, and they very boldly and bluntly say their, General Pervez Musharraf and all of their other army generals that yes, we took money from America, we did train jihadis against communists, which was a good thing. I definitely, support that movement. But then again, they kind of brainwash them into a bigger, ideology without even telling them that who support them morally, who give them funds and money and guns and everything. But then they kind of got bold in that actions that if we can do against Soviet USSR, we can get success against USA. All we need is a moderators, sponsors, and it's hard to kind of find the sponsors, and that's Pakistan play a really central role. And up to date, they're taking money from USA and telling them that we are fighting terrorism. We are all working hard and giving our money to our government. But then when it comes to, yes, we are afraid of the Islams and their fascist ideology as much as we were afraid from communism ideology. And then, now what happened, like my family was here settled. I wanted to go back to Afghanistan. I was really training into neurosurgery in Lahore, Pakistan. Incident happened, things happened that all my family was in America, and especially my brothers were serving in U.S. Army and military. And if the moment they would find out that any of my family is in any way is working with the U.S. government or their military, they will definitely harm me. So then I have to leave Afghanistan and come to U.S. and join my family. But still, I was an activist for all the human rights violation which Pakistan is consistently doing against Baloch, against Christians. The Asia Bibi case was there. A Christian girls who were like jailed for the blasphemy. And then another incident happened on campus in Peshawar, the Mashal Khan guy that who was killed, and even the law enforcement agent were helping the crowd to lynch him and burn his body. Then another incident happened in Afghanistan, like a girl, Farkhunda, she was kind of blamed for having some blasphemy things against Prophet Muhammad or Islam. And then what happened that when I was here, I was in Colorado, as one of this is what happened. I was in Colorado, really in the Manitou Springs. Me and Jason was planning to climb those 3,000 stairs, and I'm seeing in the news that in Logar, where I was born, they attacked American military tanks, and it's just like they blew a wedding with 250 people die, and that wedding was from some of the people who were in the wedding. It was from Musaf, like the Shia community, which I served when I was in Kabul, and it like kind of, I'm now telling people to go and give blood, and guys are coming and they're like abusing me as it's like any Muslim apologist nature. Like they would start abusing you. Oh, you're showing your hair, you're shaming us, you're an embarrassment to Afghan community, you're an embarrassment to Islam. So I got so much like depressed, and I said, "What is?" And at that time, me and Jason, he's a nice, Lutheran guy who's open to read any religion because we are doing yoga. And I had Quran, which we were studying with Jason, and I says, "Okay, this is all what you guys are so much like care for," and I burn it. So when I burn it, it sparked this huge hatred against me, and now we were so scared. My family was scared. They threatened my brothers. They threatened my cousins. And I wonder why still my cousins and my brothers and family is following this religion. They should boycott this product named Islam because they're threatening everyone. They're going after you. If you see the example of Ayan Hirsi Ali, but by making a movie, the director was stabbed with knives. And I've read books after Mashal Khan, Hitchison's books like God is Not Great, and Stephen Fry, like reading some of the mixed Christians and atheist kind of literature about, and it was opening my eyes. And that was the first time in my life that I have to see Islam with a critical lens. That with Jason, we start watching movies like Holy Brian, The Life of Holy Brian, the Pythons, the movie series which they made about Jesus, and people make jokes in America, like you can laugh it, but it doesn't mean you should kill someone. I don't know why anything be so much holier than a human being life. I don't think so. Anything in the world is more precious than a human life. And I think in America, we don't believe in killing anyone coming from any backgrounds. Rather, America was always a place to invite good people and give them support, whether it was the German Nazi after Second World War, our Jewish brother and that community, all the way from the Albert Einsteins to the decent citizens. They made America their home, and they did great. But the irony is, I feel as back George Washington, when he was the started a war against a king of British Empire, when they sent 4,000 fleets to New York and another 8,000 from Canada, and a bunch of American people who believed in freedom and democracy and freedom for themselves and freedom for their future generation. And that after 200 years being an Afghan, now I'm a proud American citizen. I'm eating the fruit of the men who were brave, who were bold, and who had the courage to stand against the atrocities, to stand against the invaders or the oppressors, as we did help rescue people in Second World War, and even during our civil wars, the Abraham Lincoln era. We always fought the atrocities and bad guy. So I guess now again we are at a stage to unite with India and make another elite force and army, and fight these factions which is polluting the entire human race. And those in Indian we says that Vasudeva Kutumbakum, world is one family. So we, being a member of this family from all walk of life, we should unite and fight the evils, take the devil back to hell. So now
Fawzia.
Pakistan, yeah. So
Yes,
now
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think we have got another of
Yeah.
our guest who's come into the studio, and let me welcome him.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Nice being with you.
Nusrat ji, namaskar. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yes, so Nusrat ji, we were discussing about if we are still scared after 1400 years because there is a lot of fear. I would want to know, what do you have to say about that?
About Islamophobia?
Yes, about Islam. I mean, why is there so much of fear even after 1400 years? Why are people still scared?
I don't get you.
Fawzia, could you please?
Yeah, Kali, actually, let's move to Robert and our other Bill guest, because he just he just came into the show and he's not having the background knowledge.
No. I just asked a simple question. Nusrat ji, I want to know your views.
Sarah says that there is two things. One thing is an Islamophobe, which Bill talked about, the Colorado incident. Another thing is in the general fear of Islam. Like, for example, me being a woman, I fear going to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, any Muslim country. You know, why that fears is still there? What is there that we are so afraid of? Is there anything to be afraid of? Or is all just a religion of peace and everyone's love you? He left.
Oops. We will wait for him. Okay, now I would want to add in my take, about the 1400-year-old thing. And I was always fascinated with a lot of these stupidity that is involved. And I always used to question. So I was always beaten up and my questions were never answered. And that was a clear indication, and my brain had processed that there is something wrong. And I decided to quit. Yes, we have Nusrat Ali again. Hi, Nusrat.
Yeah. Hi, dear.
Thank you so much, Nusrat. We are so honored to have you.
Thank you, dear. It's great to be with all of you, and it will be an honor to talk to dignitaries like you. What was your question? I did not really get it right because the internet was not working very well.
Yes, I will repeat the question, Nusrat ji. And the question is, why are people still scared after 1400 years? Why are people still scared of Islam?
Islam.
Yes.
Now, thank you very much. This is a very pertinent question, and it really belongs to me because I'm a Muslim. I tend to disagree with this proposition that the people are scared. One thing from the very beginning, from the very outset, if we honestly analyze the situation before Islam and after Islam, people were more scared socially and from other angles in their personal lives and in their national lives before Islam came. And once Islam dawned in, it brought such smooth changes in the social setup, so as to define certain parameters for nations to interact, parameters for the society to interact, parameters for the women, parameters for the slaves, and which was highly, full of honesty, togetherness, and empathy. Now, as regards a scare, yes, at the local level at that particular time, when something arises, when some new concept comes, when some new religion dawns, there are certain problems which arise. For example, other religious factions that were near to that, number one, are unbelievers, which were Arabs who didn't believe in anything concrete like Christianity, Judaism, or Islam was just very new. So this factional problem arose, and that problem was in due course of time settled, but scars remain. And then later on, political rifts arose after conquest of Iran, problems with Roma and all that. And those legacies have lingered on. Whereas Islam is an innocent bystander, or rather in any religion or atheism even, is an innocent bystander as regards anything associated with that religion or a concept as terror or something like that, because terror does not originate from any religion, any concept, or any philosophy. It arises from the minds of the people who follow those religions because of their personal inflections, personal vendetta, personal interests, and all that. And I personally think that Islam has nothing against Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, or any religion, and vice versa. Other religions also don't have any such paranoia against Islam. It is we humans, our inflections, our weaknesses, our interests, our governing profiles, our political systems, which had their own, looting or fighting spirits, which have created all that halo around the humanity, unfortunately, which we are till today suffering, and which we are likely to suffer if we don't sort out this basic philosophical question, that it is not the religion, it is not the faith, it is not the concept, it is our own inner weakness as nations, as groups, as followers of a particular religion. That's how I view it.
Yes, beautiful. And now I would request if Robert or Bill could add in some light, because Nusrat, Robert and Bill are two scholars who have written endless books in Islam and understanding Islam. So we are here to discuss if there is at all something wrong that is being projected or narrated, throughout history.
Welcome.
So Robert and Bill, would you want to add in something?
Welcome, dear Robert.
Thank you. I have a few observations. If Bill, if you'll pardon me for going first.
Fine.
In the first place, in regard to terror and terrorism, there are several passages of the Quran that are pertinent in this connection. I'm sure that that the gentleman knows them. They are Surah Al-Anfal, that is chapter 8 of the Quran, verse 12 and verse 60. Verse 60 says that you should prepare steeds of war in order to strike terror in the enemies of Allah. And Allah promises in Ahl Imran, the Surah 3, verse 151, that he will strike terror in the hearts of the unbelievers. And Surah 8:12 that I mentioned before, Al-Anfal, verse 12, says that the Muslims must strike terror in the enemies by striking off their heads and their fingertips. Also, there is kill them wherever you find them in chapter 2, Al-Baqarah, verse 191, and chapter 4, An-Nisa, verse 89, kill them wherever you find them again. Chapter 9, Surah At-Tawbah, verse 5, kill the mushrikeen, those who associate partners with Allah in worship, wherever you find them. Surah 47, Muhammad, verse 4, when you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks. So it does seem as if there is quite a lot of violence and terrorism, and of course I could go on, that is in the Quran. And so I don't know that it's quite accurate to say that this is a matter of the individual people and not of Islam itself.
Can I respond to it, sir?
That's
Yes,
up to
Robert,
Kali.
can I respond to it?
That's up to Kali.
No,
yes,
Bill,
yes.
no,
If you
Bill,
want to,
let Bill, Kali, let
yes,
Bill
yes.
also
Let's take
add,
Bill's opinion first, and then we will round it off with what
Dr.
Nusrat has
Nusrat
to
can
say.
respond to both of them.
Okay, dear.
Yes,
Okay, dear.
yes.
Okay.
Bill, please.
Well, instead of turning to the Quran, I'm going to turn to Muhammad. It's interesting. In the Sirah, the life of Muhammad, we find that if you do a careful counting, there's 105 acts of jihad that Muhammad participated in. Not necessarily personally, but sending his men out to do the work for him. As a scientist, I became interested in this question. How many people have died in the act of jihad over 1,400 years? So did some work on this, and the numbers that I come up with are rough. 60 million Christians, 80 million Hindus, 10 million Buddhists, and 120 million Africans. This to me is a lot to be afraid of. This is a pattern over 1,400 years of violence. And we see jihadis working in America. We saw them in particular on September 11. So I say that if we follow not only the Quran, but the Sunnah of Muhammad, we see that there are many acts of jihad. If you express, I remember there's one of my favorite hadith is, who will kill Ashraf, who has offended Allah and his prophet? Ashraf was a Jewish poet, and all he had done was write a poem about a Muslim woman. I will, Muhammad, but first I will have to deceive him. May I do so? Yes, deceive him. And so the man deceived Ka'b bin Ashraf and killed him. So these are marks of violence which I do not find in other such works, such as Buddhism or Christianity. So anyway, I find your charge that we should not be afraid of Islam sort of interesting in the sense of 270 million dead people over 1,400 years is something I'm afraid of if it happens again.
Yes.
Now,
Nusrat,
can
what do
I
you
now?
have to say? Yes.
Okay, dear. With great respect, I would like to, differ with you on both these points, both gentlemen's points. In Islam, the violence against Muslims, when it starts, we are only then allowed to react, number one. Number two, many areas of the world, we ruled on 3 subcontinents, 3 continents. Islam ruled on 3 continents. And can you show me one example like Christians, brethren did, Isabella did in Spain? We were in India. You were also in India. Tell me, please, who looted and who destroyed India and who erected and who, developed India? And Islam did not get root in India because of Muslim conquerors. No, not at all. It got its roots because of our Sufis who adopted common notions of the societies, and we have remained together, and yet we are together in so many ways. And Hindus, brethren, were not forcefully converted into Muslims. They, by their own will, they accepted, as certain people nowadays in different societies are accepting Islam. So many big scholars of Christian brethren and in Hindus and other faiths, even now, are willfully, after reading the Islam, adopting Islam happily and preaching Islam. Had Islam been so, bad after maligning by so many, historical distortions and all that, where have these statistics come, it is not possible by any measures that we killed 60 million Hindus or 60 million Christians. Yes, when fights occur, in fights, we had, fights with papacy and fights with Romans and fights with Christian outfits. In that case, we also lost people. They also lost people. And they were, I hope you are sure, they were not on religious point. Mind
Nusratji, I beg to differ. I would want to intercept here. The Sufis that you're talking about, we have an entire history about the Sufis and Mughals raping Hindu women in India, destroying temples and making mosques on top of it. So how would you view that? Would you view that as a, friendship, thing, or would you view that
dear,
as a...
Yes, I tell you. My
Could
dear,
you please elaborate these things also?
Mughals don't represent Islam, please. Mughals don't represent Islam because kings don't represent any religion, in my opinion. Like modern history, just few years back, millions of worthy Westerners, Americans, were against every fight that West thrust upon East. Millions of them. And the governments carried out what they wanted to carry out. And Tony Blair then had to say apology. And things are opening up. That apologies and problems are erupting of the lies. Why? Because it was not faith. It was not the great people of United States or West or India. It was the few juntas of rulers, politically motivated, who had their own ways to devise things. Same was the case with our rulers. The Mughals or whosoever entered India, they were not the proper representatives of faith Islam. They were Muslims. As many of Muslims, we are worse than ordinary humans, because that is not the problem of Islam. That is problem of our weakness. We are not following our faith.
Yes, Nusratji, I would like to intercept over here. You just now said a while back that a lot of celebrities are embracing Islam. People are dancing in the beauty and the spirituality of Islam. And you quickly disassociated when I was speaking about the Sufis and Mughals, annihilating and creating atrocities over the Hindus. Could you please tell me why? Or we will come back to you. But first, I would like to request Robert. Robert, could you please shine some light on it?
Yeah, actually, I took a few notes because I wanted to make sure to remember all these things. What we have is a classic example here of deception and deflection and changing the subject and various kinds of logical fallacies. And there were so many coming so fast, which is also a very common tendency in this kind of discussion, that it's important to go back and recall some of the major ones so that we don't forget in the onrush of these deceptions and lies. The first one is in terms of Muslims only fighting when they are attacked. And then I would ask the gentleman, not right now, but once we're finished with all this, to explain passages of the Quran, such as chapter 8, verse 39, Al-Anfal 39, which says, fight until religion is all for Allah. If you were to continue to fight until religion is all for Allah, then that's not just defensive. You have to keep fighting as long as there is some religion that is not for Allah. In which that means that there's an open-ended, endless warfare against non-Muslims. And of course, Muhammad said that you should when you meet the unbelievers, you fight them. You first invite them to accept Islam, then you invite them to pay the jizya, the tax, and then you fight them if they refuse the other two choices. He didn't say anything about only do this if you're attacked. I noticed that you did not actually address or explain or even attempt to any of the Quran verses that I mentioned before, or any of the passages from Muhammad's Sirah that Bill mentioned. And that, of course, is also interesting. Instead, you started to speak about history and about how Christians behaved badly. What is that?
I never blamed that Christians behave badly.
Well, hold on. The Christians have behaved badly, and that's all to excuse me, sir.
Nusrat, please let Robert finish. Nusrat ji, we'll come back to you.
The point is not that Christians haven't behaved badly. Of course, human nature is everywhere the same, and people of all faiths, all creeds, all religions, and no religion have committed terrible abuses throughout history. But the question at hand was, why are people afraid of Islam after 1400 years? And how Christians have behaved is completely irrelevant to that question. The fact that Christians may have committed atrocities and Muslims have also committed atrocities doesn't say anything about the atrocities that the Muslims have committed or whether they were inspired by the teachings of Islam. So it's completely irrelevant. Also, it's noteworthy that you say that the Mughals did not represent Islam, since this is something that's always said about everyone who is a Muslim who commits an atrocity. When other Muslims are challenged about it, they say, oh, he doesn't represent Islam. But the Mughals themselves, if you read the writings of Aurangzeb or Jahangir or any of the other Mughal emperors, they thought they represented Islam. They explained that they were killing Hindus and destroying temples because of Islamic teachings, and quoted Quran and invoked Muhammad in exactly the same way that Bill and I have done here today, only they were doing it in terms of belief and acting upon the passages enjoining violence that we have discussed. And so it's very important to stay on topic here. The question is, why is it that people are afraid of Islam? And we gave Quran passages from Muhammad's life, and those still are out there waiting to be explained. Maybe there's some big misunderstanding. Maybe people have not read the Quran properly for all these centuries. But then the question would arise, why is it that it's so hard to understand properly?
Sir,
I will request Bill now. Nusrat, we'll just come back. Bill, could you please add in some bit?
I would like to go back to not the history that you would like to talk about, but the history of Muhammad, because I'm very comfortable talking about Muhammad. We discover that when Muhammad first started his career as a prophet, he preached the religion of Islam in Mecca for 13 years and converted about 150 people. They drove him out of Mecca because he created arguments. He went to Medina, where he became a jihadist and a politician. When he died 10 years later, everyone on the peninsula that we now call the Arabian Peninsula was a Muslim. The point I'm making here is that the religion of peace under Muhammad did not succeed, but the religion of jihad and politics did succeed. And also you have to understand something else here. My point of view is that of the kafir. Your point of belief is that of the believer. You believe there is no God but Muhammad and Allah is his prophet. There is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. Sorry, I got that backwards. I don't believe that. So therefore, there's this gap between us that I do want to stay with studying the life of Muhammad, because you, sir, are supposed to imitate the life of Muhammad. He's your prophet. He's not my prophet. So therefore, when the other thing they did it in Medina, when you mentioned how well they treated the Jews, when Muhammad moved to Medina, that was half Jewish with 3 tribes. 2 years later, they were all gone, exiled, driven out, enslaved, and imprisoned and killed. So therefore, when I look at the life of Muhammad, I ask, why aren't you living the life of Muhammad? But I guess you're just stuck in Mecca. But you don't want to go to Medina, do you, sir?
Nusrat,
sir, can I respond?
please.
Can I respond?
Yes,
Sir,
Nusrat ji, all yours.
Okay, dear. Sir, do you know there are pacts between Jews and Muhammad? Who violated those pacts? If you have read it well, you must be knowing. Did Muhammad disturb or attack any single Jew just spontaneously, even if when he shifted to Medina? Number one. Number two, we don't hide this fact. Islam is not just a religion, it's a way of life, it's a way of governance, it's a way of dealing with nations. It's not a small cult that we just do beads and we recite sermons. No, Islam is not like that. And the worthy Jews, when they started disturbing, when they started deceiving, when they started breaking the promises, only then things went wrong. Otherwise it was not. Number one. Number two, as regards Quranic verses and all that, that is always out of context, my dear brothers and sisters, because you have not read it with, number one, with the intention that a religious scripture should be read. There is a prejudice and bias, unfortunately, not because of your fault, because of the historical rift between religions. And for example, Christ. For me, Christ is my beloved prophet. I cannot think of speaking any or thinking any nonsense about my beloved prophet Christ, because he is my prophet also. He is one of the most important prophets cited in Quran, and my belief is that his name is many times in Quran, and our belief is that he will once again come and speak for us, speak for humanity, speak for. So our compulsion is that we cannot distort any verse of the scriptures, and we cannot talk against the prophet because he is our prophet also. Unfortunately, this is not the case with Muhammad. And the problems that have been created, you told we created mischief. Who created 2 world wars, and the Christian brethren were killed in Europe? By whom? By Muslim? Not at all. You killed Aborigines everywhere. You killed them in America. Was that Islam? Rather, there were some Muslims in that who were brought from Africa also, with the question of black lives matter. I don't say every life matters, be it Muslim, Christian, Jew, or whatsoever, non-believer. So if you overall compute out the problems, murders, wars, then Islam has the smallest piece in that particular case, number one. And number two, you may think, you may say whatever suits you, because in what happened in Twin Tower, is there a clear picture about that? There are 101 conspiracy theories. And my dear brother Robert and all that, did you see when the Afghan people were being bombarded? I till now my heart bleeds. Small children being shredded into pieces, unfortunately. What happened in Arab Spring? Millions of Muslims have been killed. Why? On what? Were they talking against Islam, Christianity? Were they a threat to any papacy? Were they creating any trouble for Hindus or our any brethren otherwise? No, not at all. These are games of loot and plunder. And this loot and plunder has been from the very beginning. And when wars happen, the main premises were these, not the religion. Islam did not attack Christian. Had Muslims had the idea of effacing Christianity and Hinduism, they could have. They were in such a great power, at one time, the King of England became Muslim in fear of the forces of Spain. But we did not push the things further. France was almost captured. We ruled in Spain. Did we convert? Christians, as the Isabella did that, they killed all the Muslims? No. So if you visualize Islam as a non-biased scholar, you will find Islam, the tenets of Islam and the Prophet at the highest moral podium.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we are, we are bathed in unfortunate biases through our teachings, through our media, through our religious and political legacies, which is wrong. Let us bury all these hatchets. Let us behave as humans. Let us respect each and every point of view and religions, icons, and that I feel, and I'm thinking on those lines, that rather than creating these uh, disturbances in each other's mind by abusing each other's tenets, I think that is not the case now. We have touched the Mariana Trench, we have touched the Mars, we have lived on the moon, and yet we have not found the sole path of uniting the humanity in so many aspects.
Yes, thank you, Nusrat ji. And I would now request Fawzia to come into the discussion and tell us her experience. Nusrat ji, there is a lot of beheading sanctions against Dr. Fawzia for being so expressive.
Okay,
Fawzia.
can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, Dr. Nusrat is my professor. He's a professor of orthopedic in Pakistan, Lahore. Not only him, but a lot of the professor, assistant, associate, and demonstrator, like they are even student life, especially we girls living on a campus in dorm. Especially in Lahore city, it's a very cosmopolitan city. It was a very developed city, touched by many, whether it was Mughal, British, and before that, the Sikh traditions and Hindu traditions. That was a kind of melting pot for many people who really like experience different layers or different aspects of life. For me, the problem with me is that, as Dr. Nusrat mentioned, that there is no fault in Islam. It's my fault. Like, we are kind of becoming apologetic, protecting something that, that is not. Why would I blame myself if a religion think that my witness compared to a man would be 1/3 of a man? Like, for example, we are against no religion. In America, you can be a cult. You can live as much cultish life as you can, as long as you are not going on somebody else's property and distorting their peace. You can do whatever you want to do in your home. It's like you have an autonomy on your body and on your property. But the moment you come on my property and start preaching me what I don't allow you to, then as an American Constitution, I'm allowed to kind of even go to any extent once you come on my property. But the problem I see in Islam, that it has been kind of coming, like, made me a property for a man. Like, I shouldn't stop my husband, I should be there for his field from whatever angle it pleases him. And I'm not allowed as a woman to marry a Christian or a Jewish or a Hindu. But yes, our men are allowed to marry a Christian or a Jew, Ahl Kitab, which we call. This religion is not Dr. Nusrat is biased, not my other professors, not Pakistani people, because Dr. Nusrat kids are really like contributing to different communities. They're serving different people from different walk of life. So is Dr. Nusrat. For him, he would never be biased if a Hindu, Christians, or Jews go to him for treatment, he would treat him fairly if it's about Dr. Nusrat. But when it comes to Islam, it does treat you unfair. Even the women within Islam has been treated unfairly. I've never been treated unfairly by a Muslim man or a Muslim woman, but I am treated unfairly by this ideology. Yes. Why? The inheritance I have, the men who is allowed to marry for, the men who would get 72 virgin. Where is my 72 virgin? Don't I have feeling? Don't I want to kind of a guy who, like a woman in a 72 virgin, you touch them, they become so young again and again. When they drink water, it will be showing up their throats, going down their throats. Maybe Dr. Nusrat is happy because he will enjoy all the perks of the Jannah, but I'm not happy with, because this ideology is biased for me. Like when we go to Las Vegas here, if there is a female strips club for male, there is male strip club for females. Like a young guy, I can pay, he can strip for me and dance on this pole, and I can see, go enjoy and come back and be happy. But the life after death for a Muslim woman is not coming with those perks. Rather, I have to be sitting with this man. And no, in this world, I have to be a submissive wife. So I can only gain the company of my husband. Even the jerk that I don't like at first place in this world, I have to be submissive. So once I die, and that gentleman keep playing with that 72 virgin who, according to Maulana Tariq Jamil, are so tall that their one leg, like the way they would be so tall that they would be standing like on Himalayas. And then the top pike in Colorado, and in between those two legs.
Yes, now I want to quickly add in.
Let me finish that.
Yeah.
In between those two legs, which she would be standing on, in between is the Amazon jungle. Once a thirsty Jannati would go and quench their thirst, they will found a Bande Amir. The Bande Amir is like kind of if you guys have seen the Amu Oxus river, they will find, or rather a whole Indus River in between those legs, and the Indus River would be hidden in that Himalayan. The Amazon forest, and the men would be quenching, the Muslim be quenching their thirst in that Indus river. But the way they disrespect women, whether putting her in a status of a hoor or then putting her in a status of a Muslim woman. Yes, I bear witness that my professors, all my professors, all the teachers, especially those who teach medical in Pakistan, they're wonderful human beings. They're the embodiment of a good humans, but the Islam, which they give the blame to Islam. Don't take the blame for an ideology which is so wild, which is so fascist, which is so biased, which is gender biased, which is racist. We have to call it off. I'm tired of taking the blame for an ideology which was been imposed on me. I didn't volunteer. I didn't sign up to be a Muslim. Yes, Muslim invaders, whether it was Ghori, the Ghorban dynasty, whether it was Safavid, whether it was Umayyad, whether it was Shahidu Shamshira, who would come and kill our men with the swords, and then sell, captured Afghan women as a booty in the war, and sell them by the name of Kandariyat in Egypt as slave. And as the verses of Surah Nisa and Surah Maida says, when you captured a woman as a booty in a war, you can, share it among your friend. You can give it as a gift to another friend, or you can keep it for as long as it pleases you. Well, if they are abusing a power once they enter a territory, giving the same power to an American army, which with all the might of their presence in Afghanistan They can't do that, because the moment any American soldier go out and leave the base and start killing Afghan men and capturing their women and using them for sex lust among themselves and converting their children on force to something other than Islam, and that very moment every American will stand against that atrocity. Or I would give another example, like for example, American army went after Osama in Abbottabad. Once they killed Osama, what they were supposed to do based on Sharia, they should bring Osama's wife in that plane and keep like raping them as long as it pleases them. Once they bring to the base in Afghanistan, they should give it to the fellow American soldier so they can quench the thirst of their lust. That is what is disrespecting in this ideology towards me. Yes, my teacher, he never was like asked me to wear hijab or not to wear jeans or wear a certain clothes. He was unbiased. He was respecting all his students. He's a good human being. He's a good teacher. He's a very good doctor above all. But one thing is wrong with my teacher is stop taking blame for an ideology which you not at all project from your actions. So in the thought that you are defending that ideology, stop defending that, because your actions are not the projections of the ideology. Your action is inspired by the humanity. Okay.
Yes. Now, I would like to quickly add in here. First of all, I would want to say, Fawzia, you don't have to be apologetic. And secondly, we are having a healthy discussion along with criticism about Islam. I personally was born in Islam and I left it 13 years back. And I left it only after understanding and, understanding Quran with the meanings. And I would not be apologetic. It did not make sense to me. It sounded inhumane because Quran says that women are brainless and they deserve just to spread their legs, have sex, be treated like I don't know what. And, even the dozakh, the hell is filled with women because they're cranky, they are absurd. So these kind of descriptions of a woman really annihilated my trust in Islam. And I thought of taking a quick and easy way out of it. And yes, I'm not apologetic about it. It did not make sense. And later I read about Huzur Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and it was quite a interesting story that I read. And definitely I would not be criticizing him because he had been a phenomenal person for billions of people. But to me, I would like to stay away from someone who is like that or who believes in that. Yeah, that's my take on it. Coming back to Robert. Robert, please.
Well, I have some notes from what the gentleman said earlier. One was that apparently Muhammad's massacres of the Jews were justified because the Jews broke covenants with Muhammad. This is just partially true. The covenants were after he had he concluded, according to Islamic tradition, according to Muhammad's first biographer, Ibn Ishaq, through the recension of Ibn Hisham, the covenants were made, and then Muhammad exiled 2 of the 3 Jewish tribes of Medina in violation of the covenants. Then the 3rd tribe was caught with the Muslims inside Medina during the Battle of the Trench, the siege of Medina by the Meccan Quraysh. And the Jews reached out to the Quraysh, which is only understandable since they had seen the betrayal and exile of the other 2 tribes previously. And then after that, Muhammad went up to Khaybar, to the oasis where the exiled Jews had gone. And he said, we will wait until morning to attack because we'll wait and see if we hear the azan, the call to prayer. And if we hear it, then we won't attack. But they didn't hear it. And they saw the Jews coming out to work their fields. They were not attacking the Muslims. They were going out to work on their farms. And Muhammad said that it is terrible for a people who have been warned, which apparently was a reference to his previous call to them to convert, whereupon he exiled them. So he was the aggressor in every aspect of his interchanges with the Jews, in exiling them first and then massacring them at Khaybar. And then, of course, Khaybar became a chant, Khaybar, Khaybar, Ya Yahud, Jaish Muhammad Sayyid, that Muslims chant to this day. Khaybar, Khaybar, O Jews, the army of Muhammad will return, which shows that we are not discussing ancient history. We are not discussing religious belief. We are discussing very important problems for the modern world today, because there are still Muslims in the world today who believe that in massacring Jews, Muhammad gave an example to the Muslims. And of course, Muhammad also said in a hadith, the hour will not come, the last hour, the hour of judgment will not come until Muslims will kill Jews, and the Jews will hide behind trees, and the trees will cry out, "O Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." This is encouraging Muslims to kill Jews so that it would bring on the last hour. So the rest of it, the business about it being out of context, this is something we hear all the time. And the Quran verses are all evidently always taken out of context whenever any non-Muslim quotes the violent passages and the calls to terrorism in the Quran and in the life of Muhammad as recorded in Islamic tradition. And yet, there are so many Muslims who apparently take them out of context. There are jihad terror attacks around the world every day. There are 30,000 jihad terror attacks worldwide since 9/11, and every one of them carried out by a Muslim who was acting in obedience to those commands of the Quran and Muhammad. So it's not Bill and I who are taking the Quran out of context, or Dr. Fawzia, or Kali, or anybody else. It is thousands and thousands of Muslims worldwide. Why is it that your ability to teach your own religion to your own people is so faulty and so prone to failure that so many Muslims get the idea that they should commit violence for Allah and Muhammad when it doesn't really teach that? It's an absurd situation. You ought to be able to teach your own religion more properly. And finally, also, of course, as far as Christianity goes and all these supposed atrocities committed by Westerners or Christians, here again, I must say, this is the same thing you were doing last time. It's off the point. We can have a show about how terrible Christianity is, but that's not this show. And nobody is saying that only Muslims commit violence. The question is, what can we do about the fact that the violence that Muslims commit is all too often justified by teachings of the Quran and Sunnah? And that means that because Muslims believe they are serving Allah by killing non-Muslims, then this killing is going to keep on and go on until there are no more non-Muslims to kill. And so, you know, as far as the Twin Towers and all that goes, Osama bin Laden said that he was involved in it. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, they wrote a lengthy explanation, he and his other plotters, of why they took down the towers. So you have a problem with claiming it was not done by Muslims. And it's noteworthy that in that explanation of why they took down the towers, they keep quoting Quran and invoking Muhammad. And how is it that they misunderstand the Quran, the peaceful Quran, so terribly that they keep quoting it to justify violence?
Sir, may I now? Sir, the CIA man reportedly on deathbed accepted that he planted the bombs in the Twin Towers to bring it down. Number one. Number two, these things that you are talking about Islam, you know, in Western universities, jihadis were prepared. A particular, you know, cult of Islam was taught, brought to Afghanistan to defeat Russia. It was not Islam or Christianity. It was a political angle in that unfortunate nonsense war that we fought and that killed so many Muslims and that did away with the peace of the world. Again, ISIS is what? It's a proxy. All those attacks that are being perpetrated in the name of jihadis, unfortunately, are likely to be, if you delve into their reality, are likely to be a proxy. In our country even, in our country, there are factions who kill us. Who would will a true Muslim kill a true Muslim? Will a true Christian kill a true Christian? No, not at all. These are the people who are proxies of the world powers. And the world powers, they don't want any religion or any part to be in peace. Now, US is trapped in Afghanistan. They are trying, the powers, regional powers and big powers are trying to cool down America here, to defeat America here. They have already almost defeated America, and America doesn't know how to get out of Afghanistan. Now, this is not a religion. I don't have anything against you because you are Christian and you are killing us. That was my point, that religions and the followers of religions are not at fault. It is the political legacy.
I don't have anything against you. I just don't think you're being honest. With all respect,
Why?
I have to point that out. I would be remiss if I didn't point that out. But that doesn't mean I dislike you. That doesn't mean I hate Muslims. This is also a common dodge. Nobody has anything against any individual. We're talking about an ideology.
Because you people, you know it, but you don't accept it. This is all bogus, stage set for terror, anti-Muslim, anti-Jew, anti-Hindu, anti-Islam. This is all the doing of powers which want to amass all the resources of the world and which want to keep the humanity under their thumb. That is what unfortunately is the key cause. Otherwise, whatever you will never cite that it was Islam who forbade that the daughter should the part of rights of women. It was Islam who gave dignity to the women. You just take a verse and then misinterpret it. Unfortunately, there are certain things like in wars, women in wars, for example, certain other things which were taken, they are tradition. They are traditionally, they were part of these warfares and all that. And Fawzia, my dear student, told that Umayyads came and people came. This happened in all. Hindus themselves did so much to each other, Christians to each other, Muslims to each other. That is not the religion. That is the foolishness of our governing systems and our human weaknesses that we
I think we have lost connection with Nusrat ji. It's a very sad thing. We lost connection with Nusrat ji, and I think we drifted away a little bit from the topic. That are we really scared? And he said that Islam respects women. So I want to continue from there now, because he was talking about this beauty. So I would request Bill to educate us a little bit as to what is the place of women.
Well, Islam likes to say we were the first to give women their rights. They gave women the rights to be part of a harem. They gave women the rights to be abused. They gave the women the rights to be beaten. They gave women the right to be second-class citizens. They gave women the rights to occupy most of hell. So, indeed, Islam did give women a lot of rights. But I don't want any of those rights for my daughters or my wife.
One thing, better than so many religions, better than all the religions, better than Christianity, Hinduism. You read your legacy, Hindu legacy. What was the status of women, and then you will come to know.
Nusrat ji, we'll come back to Nusrat ji. It's Bill G's turn. So could you please respect that?
Okay,
Bill,
dear. Thank you, dear. Thank you.
One of the things I would like to step back and look at the big picture here. Both Robert and I want to talk about the doctrine of Islam. We want to talk about the Quran and Muhammad. and you, sir, want to talk about the daily news or something that happened in history. I would think that as a Muslim, you would want to talk only about Muhammad. You would only want to talk about Allah. And by the way, this thing about the context, and we don't understand the context in the Quran. I find it odd that I hold a PhD in physics and I can't understand the Quran when I read it, but yet an illiterate peasant out of Egypt who doesn't even read Arabic can understand Islam. How does that happen? I'm as smart as the average uneducated person. I may even be smarter. And yet I don't seem to have the ability to read the Sirah, which is nothing more than a biography, and understand it. So I'll come back to my main point. Robert and I want to talk about doctrine, and you want to talk about history. Let's talk about this history. What was the first wars that Islam fought after Muhammad died? They were the Ridda Wars. And why were they fought? They were fought because there were some Muslims who wanted to leave Islam. They were the first apostates. As a matter of fact, they can be called the apostasy wars. So here we see that it's not so good. You describe your life as a Muslim. It's just wonderful. It's glorious. It's all these things. But you try leaving it, and Abu Bakr showed you that you will pay a penalty, which these women today can still pay the penalty of being killed because simply why? They want freedom of religion. So I would like to join a discussion with you, but I would like to discuss what we read in the Quran the women's rights. I suddenly realized. Islam also gave the women the right to be child brides. Aisha was married at age 6 and consummated at age 9. If you call this equality for women, I'm horrified. So just some of my points.
Yes. Now, Bill, are you done?
I think so. We could
Yes.
go on to the fact that jihad can produce sex slaves, but I'm just struck by the fact that we want to talk about doctrine and he wants to talk about history.
Yes. Now, I would bring back Nusrat ji. Nusrat ji, now could you please tell us a little more about women?
No, first I'll respond to dear Robert's comment on that people are trying to leave Islam. They were not trying to leave Islam. They were trying, you were referring to an incident of Musailama Kazab. He said he is a prophet. That is not that he was leaving Islam. He said he is a prophet. So in our belief, Muhammad was the last prophet. This is said in Quran. This is main part of our belief. And when this is main part of our belief, they were, that's why that fight was on. Because he was trying to damage Islam. He was not saying that I am non-Muslim. He was saying I am a Muslim, but I am prophet. So this is a difference. Otherwise, the dropout rate of Muslims right from the very beginning till now is the least in history from Islam. Of course, there are people who are not satisfied and they are most welcome to leave. And number two, sir, faith, in my opinion, is one should not be proud that he became a Muslim. We should not be proud that somebody became a Muslim. If somebody becomes a Muslim or some other faith, it is his personal choice. There is nothing to be proud of it. It is human's liberty. What one wants to have it. If one wants to leave it, it is his own personal, yes. In Islam at that time, if somebody would leave Islam, there was a punishment. And that punishment is prescribed in the Holy Quran. If somebody leaves Islam after accepting it willfully and all that, I don't deny that, because I'm not referring to the scripture because I am not highly educated about my scripture as thoroughly that I can quote the verses and all that. I'm sorry, I'm not very thorough. I don't have very thorough knowledge of Quran's different chapters and all that. That's why I cannot match your quotes, because I don't remember it by heart, and I did not prepare it I didn't know what you were going to say. Otherwise, I could have read and taken notes to counter your arguments. I'm sorry. I don't want to say wrong things about my religion and about Quran, because that is a sin. But on the general, description and discussion, as I told, that Islamic jihad was initiated and strengthened by West to settle their scores with Russia, to downsize Muslims, to
Yes, now
downgrade Islam.
Nusratji, I would want to interrupt. We are discussing about Islam and Quran, so we would not want to, move into political issues and historic issues. Now, coming back to my question with all of my panelists, and everyone is free to share their view, and I would request Robert to go ahead. And I would like to know, about jihad and the killing of the, someone who is not believing Islam. To me, it looks very blasphemous and inhumane. Robert, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it is blasphemous and inhumane, but of course, from the Islamic point of view, it's just simple justice. It is the law of Allah. And the idea is, of course, that like I actually mentioned before, in a hadith, that Muhammad is attributed as saying that when you meet the unbelievers, invite them to accept Islam. If they refuse to accept Islam, invite them to pay the jizya, which is a tax that signifies their submission to the hegemony of Islam and their acceptance of Muslim rule and Islamic law. And if they refuse both, then seek Allah's help and fight them. So this, here again, like in the Quran, fight them until religion is all for Allah. This is an open-ended declaration of war against non-Muslims. Throughout history, Muslims have waged it. So it's interesting to note, in light of what the gentleman is saying about how these are all the orchestrated, these jihad attacks by sinister international powers. That may be, but I wonder who orchestrated the jihad of the Mughals or the Ottomans or the Umayyads or all the other Islamic dynasties throughout history. They weren't sent by the United States to wage jihad. So how did this happen? And of course, they were motivated by the teachings of the Quran and Muhammad that we have been discussing today. So I understand, I take note that he has said that he doesn't know Quran and is not prepared to defend it, but that unfortunately does not change its contents and does not change the unfortunate fact that there are millions of Muslims throughout history and today, without any let-up, without any time of peaceful coexistence, without any exceptions. Wherever there have been Muslims, there has been jihad warfare against unbelievers. And apostasy, in saying that people are free to leave Islam, this is unfortunately not true. Muhammad in a hadith is depicted as saying, whoever changes his religion, kill him. And chapter 4, verse 89 says that when you see people who emigrate for the sake of Allah, that is, they leave their homes and they join with the Muslims, and then they leave again, then find them and kill them. Kill them wherever you find them. And so this also is a support for the idea that those who leave Islam should be killed. And there have been many people who have left Islam who have been killed. For example, Mahmoud Muhammad Taha was an Islamic reformer in Sudan in the 1980s. And he taught that the peaceful passages of the Quran should take precedence over the violent ones, which is against standard mainstream Islamic theology that the violent passages of the Quran, being from Medina, take preference over the Meccan passages that are more peaceful. And so he was executed by the government of Sudan as an apostate. So apparently the government of Sudan misunderstands Islam. Terrorists around the world misunderstand Islam. Nobody seems to understand Islam properly, except professors who are in conversation with non-Muslims.
Yes. Now, moving on to Bill, would you want to add in, and could you please tell us how do you see the instant death sanctions that is issued, and even it is written in the Quran to kill the disbelievers wherever you see them, strike their throat and all of that? How do you see that?
Well, let me comment what one professor at Al-Azhar University said, because the Muslim gentleman said Muslims rarely ever want to leave Islam. And what he said, this professor at Al-Azhar University says, if it were not for the laws about leaving Islam, Islam would not exist. So this is an interesting contrast. You say they don't want to leave, but the professor at Al-Azhar University said if there weren't any penalty for leaving, they would all leave anyway. Just an interesting contrast in thought there. I was also reminded when we were talking earlier about the rights of women, that one of the rights that the women have is to be beaten. And one of my favorite hadith out of Bukhari by Muhammad says, never ask a man why he beats his wife. But he also gave some practical advice. Don't beat your wife and then expect to have sex with her that night. So I find that, once again, what Robert and I want to do is to talk about the doctrine of Islam. We want to talk about Muhammad. We want to talk about Allah. And I think that's where the discussion should stay. There's 1,000 things I could say. That when the morality issue was brought up, I was stunned. Because one of the things about the morality of Islam is that the kafir, and I'm a kafir, actually I'm proud of being a kafir, can be harmed. And the other thing is that the kafir's view of Islam will never be that of the believer. See, Muslims want to think the only right answer to the Quran is their understanding of the Quran. But I say that no, this is not true, that my point of view is outside the Quran, and so therefore I read it in a different way that you do as a believer. So these are just some rough ideas. I'm very disappointed that Islam did not send us a scholar so that Robert and I could debate with you about the scholarship of Islam, because that is what is important to me. History changes, nations change, but it has never changed. For 1,400 years, Islam has attacked the rest of the world. And so that's a problem I'd like to try to deal with.
Yes, and I would like to add in something that we can witness a classic example. I mean, like something that we don't know from the inner depth and we don't understand, and still we would want to defend. I mean, like I don't judge anyone, but still it would be a little funny to me to defend something which we are not completely aware of. I wouldn't do that. And moving on to now Dr. Fawzia. Dr. Fawzia, I think Dr. Fawzia is missing. Yes, Dr. Fawzia, could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the problem
Your
with
question.
Islam, the question the thing is that I see with Islam should free their women to marry whoever they want to marry. They shouldn't kill a woman and stone her to death if they have sex with somebody else and, not their important husband. And, usually what happens in Afghanistan when a woman is married to, in a very young age, to an impotent man, and if she happens to go and, fulfill her desire with another man, and the moment, when she get pregnant, the family knew that the man is impotent, they can't perform the act or produce children, but just because in the society they have to give them a status that a man has a wife and he's man enough to have a wife. So that's why then the family, like, justifying the act to kill that woman and stone her to death because she has committed adultery. And the softness that we see in other religions. Look, in America in 2014, they give gay the right to marry, which is not allowed in the scriptures, but as my constitution say that you can, and I go and I respect the constitution. Here in America, a lot of people are working, paying taxes that might be paying millions of Muslims food stamps, giving them shelters and helping them. And also the third point which I want to make is that the practices that Islam or Quran or Muhammad tell their soldier. If American Constitution or Australian constitutions or the NATO constitution allow their soldiers to go to that extreme, which Muhammad and his soldier went, conquering the whole world is just like eating like a pie for an America with all their might and power and military and the equipments, the the guns they have. They can conquer the whole world and Christianize, they can make the world whatever they want to do. But we don't do, because the ethics that we teach to our military who goes overseas is not the ethic that has been taught from Quran and the life of Muhammad, as the ISIS portray those actions and really following the Sunnah of Muhammad. Dr. Nusrat might not be following the Sunnah of Muhammad, but ISIS do follow the Sunnah of Muhammad. Taliban do follow the Sunnah of Muhammad, and their inspiration of consistently resisting the government which is supported by America in Afghanistan, that encouragement is coming from the passage and verses of Quran and life of Muhammad to oppress women, to bring Sharia law. And I'm so appalled and unhappy with us, with American government, with our congressmen and senators, and even American nations, that they didn't raise a question on the people who are going in Qatar and sitting with those monsters, unwashed, filthy lunatic, that they are paying the money and taking the money of the taxpayer and opening them an office in Qatar and giving them funds to talk and entertain Islam and Muhammad ideology and Quranic scriptures, which is a disgrace to humanity, which is a disgrace to women, which is a disgrace to the coming generation. This religion is a cancer. I would say boycott the product named Islam, and any decent human being, anyone with a conscience, anyone with a little bit of conscience left in them, they wouldn't utter or praise an ideology which has been, I won't call it an ideology. I would call it a joke of 1400 years. Now, enough is enough. We should all boycott it as a good citizen of this world. The first of all, when American troops are withdrawing their forces on May, I would request all the American citizens, whoever is watching me, and including Robert and Bill, to kindly send a letter to your congressman. Then do not leave, stay in there, and use some of the tactic on those Taliban's or their leaders who kills a lot of American soldiers, and they're free to get on Pakistani planes and join conferences in Istanbul, in Qatar, in Moscow. Please boycott them. Tell your congressmen, tell your senators, we had paid, we are working hard, we will pay more tax, but we should extinguish this wildness of an ideology from the face of this earth, whose name is Islam. And kindly, whoever is watching me, the least you can do is to leave it and call yourself Christian, Hindu, atheist, whatever. But you will honor those women who were raped in hands of ISIS, inspired by the action of Muhammad. You would honor the women who were killed innocently in Afghanistan and stoned to death, and imposing a very painful death on them by torturing them, shaming them, humiliating them in public, dragging them like cattle and cows. Even the currently, whether the punishment which has been proposed in Quran is like, if you like cutting a theft hands for like if they steal, it's not a punishment for a crime, it's a crime in itself. Stoning a woman to death simply because she had sex is a crime itself. Stoning her to death is not a punishment for a crime, but it's a crime. Oppressing your daughters and not letting them to give a free choice to choose their husband or their life partner from all the community of the world, from all the religion background, is not an ethics. They are immorality.
Yes.
So stay strong, as the Muslims are staying strong, and they are saying that one day we are going to rule the whole world. Extinguish them from the face of this world. We American, we the people of United States did that in the past. We did show what Hitler did. We did teaches them a good lesson who reaches our shores and the Pearl Harbors back in Second World War. Now, as I would quote Churchill quote, which he says, if we, like Hitler would tell him, I watched a documentary on Netflix to Churchill, that why are you coming after me? I have nothing to do with you. I'm going after France. I'm going after the rest of the world. But Churchill say, if I let this aggressor, if I don't stop his way, if I don't come in his way, he's gonna keep spreading and keep doing what he kept doing to Jews in Germany, Nazis. And he determined, and he got success to rescue all the Jews. Now it's time to rescue the Muslims who are trapped in this ideology for the 1400 years. It's our moral and ethical responsibility to do activism, to raise awareness. And I'm very thankful to Robert Spencers and Bill. Thank you for the service. Thank you for the great work that you both have been doing. Thank you for your fighting spirits. And I request Dr. Nusrat to kindly volunteer and leave this religion and tell your family to leave and be an example. Set up a good example as I did. And the world will praise you, and we will eat that fruit within 40 years. You know, the only way to teach, we can't teach Taliban or ISIS a lesson the way Muhammad or Quran teaches. We can peacefully leave this religion and announce it that we left this religion. We don't have guns. We're not violent as Muhammad was. We're not beheading anyone. We're not cutting anyone's head. All we are doing is peacefully boycotting this religion, teach them the taste, give them a taste of their own medicine by leaving and boycotting the product named Islam. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I think now here I would like to add in, I think Bill had certain reservations for the day. Fawzia,
I have to leave the conversation, and it was really nice being here with all of you, because I have to go to work, and it's time for me to leave. Thank you so much for having me. That was the last word I wanted to say. And I'll be listening to the conversation. I'll be in the show, but not in the studio.
Yes, and Nusrat ji and Bill and Robert, thanks to all of you. And I think the conversation went long.
Fawzia is just like my daughter. She is a student. She was my student, but I don't agree to her words. Her statements are too forceful, and that's why people are, giving fatwas against her. I wrote in her favor when first.
I'm sorry, I have to keep going.
Yeah, even I had to just get our special guest out of the studio because it wasn't making sense. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Yes, Robert, thank you so much, and Bill, thank you so much. Any last piece of message for my audience?
I'm sorry, I got to run. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'm in the same position. I've got to go too.
Okay, no issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
For today. Yes, thank you. Yes, so here you all have heard and you all have seen what happened. So, this discussion was a healthy discussion. And I think because of that gentleman from Pakistan, things were getting a little, moving into a different way because he has not read it. And if he has not read it, he is not confident to talk about it. He was just talking about, silly, stupid things, whereas in, I don't know, it was all lunacy what he was talking about. So it didn't make sense though. And so I had to ban him from the studio. I did not mean any disrespect. And yes, Robert and Bill also had to go because they are speakers and they had certain other commitments also. So they had to go. And even Fawzia had to go. So yes, in case if you all have any questions, you all can drop in your questions and I'll try and answer it to my best. And thank you all who had been supporting through the super chat and the super stickers. Thank you so much. And yes, the discussion was a little bit, it went into a different direction. And I think it was because of that guest. I was assuming that he's a professor and he knew that a lot about Islam, but when Bill and Robert started talking about the surahs and ayat, he had no other way rather than to confess and to just get out of it. Okay, now the first question, Hari Trivedi is asking, do you think the rising Hindutva could prove to be strong defense against Islam? Hari Trivedi ji, I would want to tell you that, for Hindutva to be in its full form, like solid, strong, and one strong form, I think, we all have to come together, because I see a lot of divides amongst us. So we have to get rid of that, and we have to come together, whether it's a Shaivite, whether it's, Vaishnav, whether it's a Brahmin, whether it's a Kshatriya, everyone is one, and everyone should come together. Only then we can fight this evil called Islam. So, I mean, by being divided amongst ourselves, we won't be able to counter them. So, in order to, counter them, we have to come together as one and stand together. And let me see if there is any other question. Only Hindu ji says, I look beautiful, I have become fat, please don't embarrass saying all these things. Shishir Chandra says, please post PDF of 26 verses of Quran, those are very aggressive. Shishir Chandra, it's the entire book that is aggressive, it's not just 26. So please correct yourself. Now, I think, yes. Now, Arpan Shah is asking how to tackle these classic jihadi apologists. See, these jihadi apologists will come, give you gyan. Now let me come back to Hindi. They will, ये लोग भौंकेंगे, ये लोग आपको ज्ञान देंगे, और उसके बाद फिर कुछ ना कुछ बकवास बातें करेंगे. ये लोग बोलेंगे कि आसमान पे से सुमैया तारा गिरा था, और उसके बाद फिर एक तलवार निकली थी पानी में से, और फिर घोड़ा उड़ के आया था दूसरे प्लैनेट पे से. So their logics is all filled with fallacy. ये लोग सिर्फ मतलब ये लोग आप एक पॉइंट पे जहां टारगेट करोगे, ये तुरंत दूसरी जगह भाग जाएंगे. तो इन जो अपोलोजिस्ट हैं, इनका धंधा ही यही है, क्योंकि अगर ये इस टाइप से बिहेव नहीं करेंगे, अगर ये खुल के सामने आ जाएंगे या ये अपने दिमाग का इस्तेमाल करने लगेंगे, तो इनका भी सर पैर से जुदा और तन कान से जुदा, दिमाग कहीं और से जुदा हो जाएगा. तो इन लोगों को अपोलोजिस्ट का काम ही है, ये आते ही हैं अपना तकिया का धंधा चलाने, और ये आएंगे तो फिर कहेंगे कि नहीं, सूरज वहां से निकला था, यहूदी आए थे घोड़े पे से दौड़ के. आप सिर्फ इनसे पूछ दें कि जिहाद क्या सही है कि गलत, तो ये चले जाएंगे किसी और जगह, बैटल ऑफ ओहूद चले जाएंगे, और यहाँ चले जाएंगे और वहां चले जाएंगे. तो ये सब तकिया है, ये जैसे भाईचारा वाला जो तकिया बेचा जाता है, ये वैसा ही है. अर्पण, आई थिंक आप इतने तो समझदार हो चुके हैं कि आपको अब समझ में आता होगा कि क्या धंधा है इन लोगों का. तो मैंने तो फिर सिर्फ बुलाया था ताकि मैं देखूं कि क्या है इनका, but they are anyways a hypocrite. Arvind Ghosh ji keh rahe, could you please organize a similar webcasting with the same group along with Sanjay Dixit and Yati Narasimhan and Saraswati Amina Sardar? Arvind ji, मैं इतना बड़ा डिस्कशन नहीं कर पाऊंगी, बिकॉज मैं कोशिश करती हूँ डिस्कशन करने का, बट गेस्ट का कोई भरोसा नहीं रहता है. सो मैं जो कर सकती हूँ मैं उस पर ये कर सकती हूँ, बट ये बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा ग्रुप आप एडवाइस कर रहे हैं. कवि रवान जी कह रहे हैं, आई एम बोर्न ब्राह्मण बट माय वर्ण इज क्षत्रिय एंड वैश्य. यस, एनीवन कैन गो इनटू एनीथिंग, इट्स ऑल अबाउट वर्क. Sarfaraz Latif ji keh rahe, Kalidasi, is the idea of myth and supernatural beings in Hinduism unfavorable to it? No, it is. See, as long as जब तक हमको किसी चीज के बारे में जानकारी नहीं रहती है, तब तक हम उसको मिथ समझते हैं या कुछ भी मतलब कह लें आप. बट अगर आप जैसे ही उस चीज को समझने लगते हैं, दैट बिकम्स योर वेरी ओन एग्जिस्टेंशियल रियलिटी. एंड आई थिंक हिंदुइज्म का सबसे बड़ा एस्पेक्ट है the spiritual side and the scientific side that is there in Sanatan Dharma. तो अब लोग उसको मिथ कहते हैं. अगर सपोज हमारे एस्ट्रोलॉजर्स ग्रह नक्षत्र और इन सारी चीज़ों को रिकॉर्ड कर सकते थे और लिख सकते थे इनके बारे में हजारों साल पहले, और एक जाहिल इंसान अगर सामने आ जाता और कहता है ये सब क्या है, ये तो मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, तो उसके हिसाब से वो मिथ ही होगा, उसके हिसाब से वो गलत वो कह देगा. ये क्या है, ये ऐसा कोई ग्रह ही नहीं होता, इतना दूर कैसे हो सकता है, हम तो देख नहीं पा रहे हैं, तो हमको सो ये इस तरीके के मतलब बातें तो रहते ही हैं जो समझ में नहीं आता है या जो हम नहीं जानना चाहते हैं या इग्नोरेंट है, हम उसको डिस्रिगार्ड कर देते हैं कि भाई ये तो मतलब बकवास बातें हैं, ये मिथ है. बट नहीं, आई कम फ्रॉम एन इस्लामिक बैकग्राउंड एंड नाउ आई एम इनटू सनातन. And Sanatan has got so much of knowledge and science into it that anyone can even understand. I mean, मुझे नहीं लगता कि मैं एक लाइफ में समझ पाऊंगी. I don't know about the others, but I'm still learning. Now let me move to Nusrat ji. Got offended? नहीं offended. I don't think so. Offend हुए होंगे. Vishal Wagmare. Nowadays, some intellectual people are saying Allah ka Islam is different और मुल्ला का Islam is different. Please इस पे आप थोड़ा कुछ बताएं. देखिए ये सब धंधाबाजी है. ये जितने लोग बैठ के आपको जो दुकान चला के ये कहते हैं कि अल्लाह का इस्लाम एक है और मुल्ला का इस्लाम एक है, ये दोनों एक ही चीज है. आप लोगों को ये चीज समझना होगा, सारे सनातनी भाइयों और बहनों को, कि ये दोनों चीज एक है. और ये जो बोल रहे हैं, जो ये कह रहा है, जिसके मुंह से ये बातें निकल रही हैं कि ये दोनों अलग अलग हैं, तो आप सबसे पहले उस इंसान से दूर हो जाइए. बिकॉज मुल्ला वही कह रहा है जो कुछ भी कुरान में लिखा हुआ है. और मैंने कुरान के ऊपर और भी वीडियोस बनाई हैं, आप देख सकते हैं. मैंने गोपाल गोस्वामी जी के साथ भी कुछ आयतों को डिस्कस किया था, वो भी आप जाके देख सकते हैं. तो ये दोनों एक चीज है. कुरान की ही बातों को वो मुल्ला कह रहा है. ये जो आपको कह रहा है कि कुरान अलग है और मुल्ला का बात अलग है, ये वो लोग हैं जो कि आपके दिल में एक जगह बनाना चाहते हैं, स्पेस बनाना चाहते हैं. स्पेस बन गया, उसके बाद फिर आपको पता है कि क्या होता है. तो ऐसी बातों से आप लोगों को दूर रहना है. नाउ मूविंग टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. रमन भारद्वाज जी पूछ रहे हैं, मिस्टर अली, हाउ कम जिहादी ऑल्सो टेक द नेम ऑफ Allah before slain? What Islamic world has done to them? You may deny 911. What about 2611 in India? देखें रमन भारद्वाज जी, I don't know when have you joined this. I think Mr. Ali has always already gone, and jihadis are like this. I think that is what it is, because they are doing that act. वो ऐसा कर रहे हैं for Allah only. तो उनको वो प्रेस कर रहे हैं. जैसे वो अगर जानवरों को भी स्लॉटर करते हैं तो वो अल्लाह का नाम लेते हैं, कलमा पढ़ते हैं, ऑल ऑफ दैट. तो दिस इज हाउ इट हैपेंस. नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू एनी अदर क्वेश्चन. गोपाल गोस्वामी जी. Gopal Goswami ji, Nusrat Sahib, why don't you adhere to the fact in Quran which says earlier prophets and their teachings were relevant? This is not Kufa. Gopal Goswami ji, वो तो चले गए हैं ना, साहब चले गए हैं. वो सब तो अल तकिया है गोपाल जी. गोपाल जी, आपको जितना अच्छे से पता है कि उतना अच्छे से नुसरत जी को भी पता नहीं होगा. Now, moving on to the next comment. Arvind ji कह रहे हैं, कालीदासी जी, if possible, at least Amina Sardar, Yati ji, if possible, I feel Yati ji situation need to be brought into global audience. देखिए मैंने बहुत कुछ लोगों को कहा है, and मैं जितना हो सक रहा है मैं अवेयरनेस क्रिएट कर रही हूँ. बट लेट्स सी, आप लोगों का साथ चाहिए. आप लोगों के साथ के बिना कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता है. अब लास्ट कमेंट ले लेते हैं. सरस्वती दासी जी नमस्ते करें. वाह सरस्वती दासी जी, नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते. VJ Kannada Vlogs कह रहे हैं, कालीदासी जी, do you get death threats from jihadis and how do you plan to help other Muslim women to Sanatan? देखिए, I cannot do anything. I'm a simple person, but apart from that, I do get a lot of threats from all corners. But I don't wish to help anyone. मेरा सबसे बड़ा हेल्प है ये मेरा चैनल, जिसमें मैं अपनी भावनाओं को लिखती हूँ, बोलती हूँ, एक्सप्रेस करती हूँ. दैट्स इट. मतलब कुछ भी ऐसा खास नहीं है. बट अगर इन सबों को ही देख के अगर कोई मोटिवेटेड होता है तो दैट्स गुड. नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू let me see if there is any comment. अच्छा, मैडम तारिक फतेह himself says सुमित अल्लाह के इस्लाम. अरे उनकी तो देखिए ये सब अलतकिया है, चाहे वो कहे या कोई भी कहे, ये अलतकिया अल्लाह का कुरान एक है, कुरान पाक एक है जो कि आसमान से आया है, मतलब ऐसे करके आया है, ये एक है। और कुरान के अलावा और कुछ भी नहीं है। कुरान बिल्कुल परफेक्ट है। जो लोग इस तरीके से छीटाकशी करते हैं वो लोग गुनहगार हैं और वो लोग गलत हैं। कुरान एक है जो कि आसमान से आया है, उसमें एक नुक्ता और जबर का भी बदलाव नहीं हो सकता है, वो परफेक्ट किताब है। और जो ऐसा लोग कहते हैं आप उन लोगों से बचें। हरि द्विवेदी जी कह रहे प्लीज इनवाइट आनंद आश्रम फ्रॉम बाली इंडोनेशिया, दे हैव अ यूट्यूब चैनल की। जी मैं कोशिश करूंगी, आप लोग मुझे मेल कर दें। और बहुत सारे लोग कह रहे थे कि उनको बहुत कुछ बातें करनी है, कुछ उन लोगों को शेयर करना है, तो आप लोग कृपया करके आप मुझे मेल कर दिया करें कभी भी आप लोगों को कुछ भी डिस्कस करना रहे। मेरा मेल आईडी है sarakhankalidasi@gmail.com। बैटमैन कह रहे हैं कालिदासी जी, you said it quite well regarding science and Sanatan. It's high science, so explaining physics to someone who's illiterate will look like a myth. Yes, तो बेवकूफों से बहस करके क्या फायदा है बैटमैन जी? It's better कि हम अपना काम करते चलें, सनातन को मजबूत बनाते चलें, सनातन की खूबसूरती को बिखेरते चलें। I think that is it. And let me see. ये हैदर लेजर जी पूछ रहे हैं आप काली माता के बारे में भी कुछ मैं काली माता के बारे में भी हमें बताइए कभी किसी वीडियो में, अपने धर्म के बारे में जागृत कीजिए। माँ की तो कृपा थी। मैं अभी ज्यादा एक्चुअली ना काली माँ के बारे में मैं बोलना नहीं चाहती हूँ, बिकॉज मेरी किताब अभी भी पब्लिश नहीं हुई है और किताब का भी फॉरवर्ड बाकी है, जो एक एमिनेंट पर्सनालिटी से जो वो फॉरवर्ड लिखाया जाता है, तो मैं उसी के लिए अभी भटक रही हूँ कुछ खास लोगों के पास। तो जैसे ही वो फॉरवर्ड आ जाता है वो तुरंत फिर पब्लिश होगी। एक बार किताब पब्लिश हो जाए फिर तो मैं मतलब बहुत ही खुल के आप लोगों के साथ और भी चीज़ें डिस्कस करूँगी, बिकॉज किताब में भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं। तो पहले किताब के माध्यम से भी आप लोग देख लें, पढ़ लें, और उसके बाद तो फिर जब तक जीवन है तब तक तो फिर अपना धर्म के लिए काम करते ही रहना है। एंड यस, अब मैं इसको समाप्त करती हूँ। आज का मैं सोची थी कि डिस्कशन थोड़ा अच्छे तरीके से और थोड़ा कंस्ट्रक्टिव तरीके से होगा, बट आई डोंट नो ऑल ऑफ अ सडन सब किसी को ही आई न्यू अबाउट कि बिल जी को जाना था एंड आई न्यू अबाउट रॉबर्ट जी को भी जाना था, बट सरस्वती दासी भी इतने जल्दी में चली जाएंगी, तो खैर सब किसी को काम होगा, not an issue. And I'll try and keep henceforth one-on-one, which will be a little bit better because debates वगैरह में एक बार और भी मैंने करने की कोशिश की थी, बट कुछ उसमें पागलपन हो गया था। तो अच्छा, प्रमोद जी मुझसे पूछ रहे हैं आप पहले मुस्लिम थी? ऑफ कोर्स मैं जापानीज लगती हूँ आपको, मैं तब एक्स मुस्लिम, और ये सब इतना सारा एपिसोड आपने देखा, आपने समझा नहीं? चंद्रा झा जी कह रहे हैं प्लीज मेक अ वीडियो कॉल ऑन मोहम्मद विद एक्सपोज। अरे पूरी दुनिया ने वीडियो बना दिया, मैं उतना ज्यादा उनका वीडियो नहीं बनाना चाहती हूँ। चलिए, so with this I come to the end of the stream and let's see if there is अब फिर से हम लोग एक नया प्लान करेंगे। चलिए, आप लोग अपना ध्यान रखिए। कोरोना काल में अभी बहुत ज़्यादा मतलब चीज़ें थोड़ी सी नाजुक हैं, तो आप लोग अपना ध्यान रखें और मास्क वगैरह लगाएं और अपने आप सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग मेंटेन करें, बिकॉज आप ठीक रहेंगे तभी आप दूसरों का भी ध्यान रख सकते हैं। ठीक है, चलिए फिर आप मुझे आप लोग इजाज़त दें, अपना ध्यान रखें। जय काली, जय महादेव, जय भारत। और मेरे चैनल को लाइक शेयर सब्सक्राइब करिए, नोटिफिकेशन बेल दबाइए। अगर आप मेरी कुछ मदद करना चाहते हैं तो ज्वाइन बटन जरूर दबाएं। गुड नाइट।